So Lightning Talks, if you didn't know, the reason that we did these is because Centerline is full of a lot of really smart people doing a lot of really interesting things. But when you're in the thick of it, it can be really difficult to remember just how many people it takes to push a project across the finish line. So the goal of Lightning Talks, which are 5-minute talks, is to give everybody a chance to sort of tell their part of the Centerline story. And the way it works, if you didn't know, if you didn't read any of my emails, it's okay. Each presentation is 5 minutes long, number 1. Number 2, presenters get 20 slides. Number 3, slides auto advance every 15 seconds. Keeps it interesting. And number 4, everybody has a really great time. So it's a pretty simple thing. 20 slides, 15 seconds, and they auto advance. Our presenters today are Sam, Jared, Courtney, and Greg in that order. And they're talking about all kinds of crazy things. There's some robots and some brains and some pop culture. It's gonna be pretty cool. Looking forward to it. So, are there any questions before we jump in? No? All right. Well, give it up for Sam. She's up first.
For those of you that don't know me, I am Sam Spelling. I'm responsible for the lead generation, email nurture of any new clients that we hope to get. And today I'm going to be talking about behavioral science and the way we make decisions. So first off, I'm going to ask you to imagine at lunch, fast food restaurant, 20 things on the menu, you choose one, and your server asks, how about a side? Take a half portion of that side. What do? Well, this is a real study. About a third of people chose to take that half portion simply because it was suggested to them. So what I'm trying to make you think of is decisions, are you really in control of what you are deciding? So this political cycle, we talked a lot about implicit biases as it relates to race, but it's really way beyond the race card. Actually, back last year, President Obama put out an executive order that said that government agencies should be using this kind of research to serve the American people better. And this year, the social and behavioral sciences team worked with government agencies to promote affordability and access to college, to retirement security, and so to explain a little bit more about behavioral science, it is how we make decisions and what we do when we make them. Kind of a cross-section of psychology and behavioral economics. So the whole core of this is really that we are not rational decision makers. We don't do what is in our best interest. We should eat less and exercise more unless our name is Ocean. And because we're marketers, we can't have nice things. As you can see, we try and use science sometimes to sway people to make particular decisions. That's kind of the point of marketing, right? So one of my first examples that I'd like to talk about, in all full disclosure, I am an Android user, but Apple is questionably a receiver of something called the halo effect. So the halo effect really mostly talked about as towards people is judging someone favorably in one area because you like them in another. So hopefully you'll do that the same for me. But back in 2015, Apple was totally dominating the digital music market. But in that same year, they sold 68% more computers without having really a lot of advertising. It's thought that the halo effect really had a big part in that for Apple. And then you can think about the ubiquity of iPhones, which came out 2 years later. So Apple is a big receiver of that. As for sales, whether you are trying to sell in more work or creative ideas, there's some tricks that you can use, kind of a heuristic, if you will, that relates to decision making. One of them is this, called social proof. We often like to think that we are independent but oftentimes we're not. We like to know what other people think. You put that in front of somebody, they might sway a little bit towards that. Same thing with consistency. We like to think that we made a good decision in the past. One of the things that people like to see is that, oh, you know, this is what I thought in the past, so if you can share that information with them, that helps. As for me, I'm concerned about how people engage with emails, if they open. Sometimes particular wording is used. As for one example of the way that happens, losing is painful for humans. There's an idea called loss aversion that basically says that it's way more painful for us to lose something than it is to gain. Here are some examples that you might see as a last chance email, or as we call it. It takes advantage of the scarcity principle. We're concerned about urgency, and we want to get those deals, so we'll open those emails. Basically, all this to say is that your choices are influenced by your environment, your experiences, and a host of other things unrelated to what you really want to do. And that is mainly because we have to make decisions very quickly, whether that's what to say, or who to talk to, or not. So thanks so much for keeping up with me.
So my crazy stuff is about artificial intelligence and why it requires a novel approach. I joined the strategy team this fall, and I'm working on Watson. And for anybody who's had a chance to chat with you, you probably have learned that I'm kind of a giant nerd about the advanced technology that we market here at Centerline Digital. And I'm going to talk about why it's a little different. So here come the brutal advance of slides. It seems that artificial intelligence will soon influence every aspect of our lives. However, the technology is far from an inevitability. In fact, there are significant barriers to persuading people to adopt artificial intelligence. To overcome these barriers, marketers must go beyond traditional strategic approaches to address psychological, sociological, and logistical issues. In 2016, we gained early insight into how to overcome these obstacles thanks to a world-famous ride-hailing service. Uber's goal is to bring safe, reliable transportation to everyone, everywhere. In 2015, the company partnered with Carnegie Mellon University to make self-driving cars. But they would have to go beyond just producing the technology. 16% of Americans in May of 2016 reported that they would want to ride in an autonomous vehicle. And so Uber would have to convince people to ride in a driverless car. So their campaign began with a precedent in which safety, of course, was one of the key themes. Later, they announced a partnership with Volvo, borrowing from that brand's enduring legacy and safety. And to promote the debut of the driverless vehicles that they brought to Pittsburgh, Uber released a video. In it, one of their driverless cars drives around Pittsburgh, takes a safe right-hand turn in front of the old ladies, yields at a stop sign before turning a pedestrian in a roadkill. And the campaign extended even to the ride experience itself, where passengers were greeted with a tablet that gave them visibility into how the car saw the world around them. And the human in the driver's seat was as much about making the rider feel safe as it was about their safety. So by all accounts, Uber made self-driving cars a reality. Only a couple of incidents occurred, and it was human-related. Didn't have to do with computers. But more importantly, they persuaded people to trust in artificial intelligence. Uber CEO proclaimed that they had reached a critical milestone in the journey to become a trusted robotics company. So you could say that this challenge wasn't entirely new. Car makers have been talking about safety for a long time. And consumers are conditioned to defer and control to passengers. But it's in this deferring of control where the unique marketing challenge lies. In Pittsburgh, Uber persuaded people to defer control of their vehicle to an artificially intelligent agent, where human drivers often experience incident injury and even death. This is the universal challenge of artificial intelligence. Marketers must persuade buyers to defer sophisticated decisions to machines. They have to convince people that AI can do it better. So the psychological issues that they have to address is marketers have to get people to trust the technology. And to trust it, they have to understand it. To understand it, they have to see it. And to see it, they have to be able to relate it to what they already know. Sociologically, they have to understand how their use of AI is going to impact the people around them. They have to have the comfort that they're behaving within cultural norms. And logistically, they have to understand how the technology fits in their lives. They have to know how to interact with it. Uber demonstrated that autonomous vehicles could function as expected by showing riders what the car was doing. They helped them understand how the vehicle navigated. It also helped people understand how the car saw the people around them. Otherwise, it was a pretty standard Uber experience. So, as AI goes, driving a car is relatively simple. Sure, there's high variability on the road, but the road comes with a discrete set of rules. And artificial intelligence has been excelling in environments with discrete rules since a piece of software won a game of checkers in the 60s. What's a greater challenge is marketing more complicated use cases of artificial intelligence. How do you assure a parent that a robotic nanny knows the best course of care for their child? How do you convince an HR professional that an artificially intelligent agent can help them determine which employees to lay off? Beyond psychological, sociological, and logistical issues, artificial intelligence gets to the core of our humanity. Control over our environment, our behavior in that environment, that's what gives us agency. And deferring that to computers, people may feel that they're giving up some of their independence. Our ability to make complex decisions and solve challenges is what makes us exceptional. By deferring some of that problem solving to computers, we may be conceding that computers can also be exceptional. It's subconscious behaviors like these that drive conscious purchasing decisions. As marketers, we have to address these thoughts, or else we risk prohibiting the adoption of our product or of AI in general. So like Uber, various businesses are, of course, realizing value in AI, one of our favorites, IBM. Let's help them overcome buyers' barriers to adoption by persuading them to choose a life bettered by advanced technology. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Courtney. I'm a graphic designer and marketing coordinator on the marketing team. And today I'm going to be talking about 3 marketing lessons in pop culture. Do I have to press next?
Yeah.
The first time? Okay. Whew, I'm real nervous. Okay, so pop culture, obviously that's music, art, fashion, literature, television, now politics. I love pop culture, so it's very easy for me to get lost in it, but it does apply to marketing. So, I downloaded on your Twitter feed so I can communicate with you better. Rob Gurley sent this to me one day. If you guys know him, that might not sound weird, but that's when I really realized how many cultural references and slang I use in my day-to-day speech. But then I realized that those things do apply to marketing in some ways. So I'm going to give you 3 lessons based on some of my favorite pop culture events in the last year and a half. Dun, dun, dun. Lesson 1, don't stretch the truth. Don't lie. Because the internet's going to call you out like that, real quick. So my friend Nicholas Frazier is going to express his feelings about his friends lying to him in this line.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my God, stop fucking lying. Always lying to me. You're lying so much.
So here's the lyrics if you didn't catch them. You might recognize the tune from the 1997 hit Too Close from the R&B group Next. But if you didn't, you might notice this is still circulating from 2015. But the point is, he's sick of his friends always flexing, lying about what they have, how much money they make, what they do. It's the same thing for us. Our consumers and our audience don't trust marketers. We're like the lowest trusted job. So we have to do better, and we have to figure out a way to build a relationship and gain people's trust before we, initiate any conversations with them. So my tip is know the difference between where you are and where you want to be, and speak accordingly. Obviously, set your aspirations, but be true to your brand and make sure you aren't exaggerating. Lesson 2, disrupt the status quo. So we're going to get a lesson from my good friend, Young Thug. He's always doing something different, always doing something crazy. So let's take a look here. Alright, so he's a rapper from Atlanta, he's 25, you know, makes trap music, the standard. But he brings a completely new sound to rap, and he also dresses in women's clothing and dresses. This is his new album cover coming
There's
out.
the rapper wearing a full layered dress, which took more than an hour for him to get into during the cover shoot. It was maybe a bit unexpected, but definitely on brand for Young Thug, who's been pushing boundaries by giving absolutely zero fucks about blurring the lines when it comes to gender and...
It's always been about fashion to me. I just rap to make money for fashion, Young Thug. So that's cool. Like she said, it's on brand for Young Thug. He does whatever he wants, and he's a millionaire because of it. But the point is, he's not doing what everyone else does all the time. You don't always have to ride the wave of emerging trends. You don't want to do anything too crazy, you don't want to lie, but you don't have to jump onto whatever is trending that second at that moment. Lesson 3, my last lesson. Don't force it. And we're going to get this lesson from Madonna and Drake. This happened at Coachella last year. When Drake was performing, he invited Madonna out as a special guest, and it didn't really go too well. Sheer terror. He is so sad. If you didn't catch that last part, we said, holy shit, what the fuck. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was Madonna's insanity. That quote I did not make up. You don't want to force things. Like, if the relationship isn't working, it's not working. And that goes with the discussion about client relationships or traditional marketing versus inbound marketing. Like, interruption-based things don't work anymore. So love cannot be found where it doesn't exist. Don't stalk your customers. Create relevant content and let them come to you, and it'll work out. So, recap. Don't stretch the truth. Disrupt the status quo, and don't force it. I think these are the keys to success here, in life and in marketing, perhaps. And I'll just end with a quote from Joe Bond himself. What a time to be alive. So with all the great things going on in social media and the world in general, I think you can find inspiration and tips and tricks and lessons for marketing everywhere. And that's all I have for you.
So today I'm going to talk about a little bit more strategy. It's not nearly as exciting as all that. But we're going to talk about the right way to use assumptions in a rapid content model. And I feel like that's a pain that we all feel because sometimes we're forced to create content faster than we might feel comfortable doing so. So we start by asking questions. Who are we trying to reach? What do they care about? What do we know about them? What channels do they engage on? And we usually get answers to our questions. There are a number of things that kind of impact the data that we get, but unfortunately not all the answers that we get are right. There are things like personal agendas, bias, and incomplete data that impact that. But today I want to talk about assumptions, because there's a way to use those to help us move fast. So an assumption I have defined here in my totally made up definition is any piece of information that's not supported by objective, recent observation. So we're talking about things like hunches, guesswork, things that people might feel like are accurate or they're just guessing at. And the kicker is that the longer a person markets to a particular type of audience, the harder it is to separate their needs from the customer's needs. And ultimately, where that leaves us is with a pile of information, and we don't know what we can rely on. So we need to figure out as quickly as possible what information is accurate and actionable so that we can move forward with creating our content. So before we get into tactics, I want to talk for just a second about the risks that assumptions expose us to. If we rely on bad data, it can make our content not perform the way we want it to. So I want to talk about 3 important things to consider. The first is irrelevant or confusing messaging. So if we use words that our audience isn't familiar with or they don't understand, they won't be able to interpret the value proposition accurately, and it'll mean that our content doesn't get them to do what we want them to do. The next thing I want to talk about is inaccurate targeting. So we can create the best content in the world, but if we don't put it on the right channel where our audience is, they're not going to see it, and it's not going to cause them to take the right action. And both of those kind of lead up to my last point, which is poor conversion rate. So if we use the wrong message or the wrong tactics, we're not going to hit our audience, we're not going to convert them, and our marketing dollars will have been wasted. So my title on my presentation is The Right Way to Use Assumptions, but I think it's helpful for a second just to consider some of the wrong ways to use assumptions to power content in a rapid model. So I have three things we want to talk about. The first one is that we don't want to rely on one person to validate our assumptions. So it can often be the case that we have many stakeholders involved in a project, and there might be one stakeholder who speaks more loudly than the rest of the room, and we want to make sure that we're giving equal weight to each person's feedback so that we're not just relying on one person's opinion. The next is we don't want to lump assumptions in with our known data and neglect validation. So we want to earmark our assumptions to make sure that as we move into our marketing strategy that we're considering what they are and how they're impacting the results. That makes us smarter in the long run. And the last thing is that we don't want to throw them out. So we're trying to create content quickly, and the reality is that sometimes we're forced to move before we feel like we have all of the information. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. So we are left with a pile of our data, and typically what we would like to do is have a collaborative working session with our clients where we get them to run through a series of exercises with us to help us learn a little bit more about the information we're dealing with. And one of those exercises, we ask a series of questions that get us to separate the facts from the assumptions. At this point, we can set the facts aside because we feel comfortable, and we can consider specifically the assumptions that we have identified and how we're going to use those in producing our content. So one question we like to answer is, which assumptions are we comfortable making? So we have a number of ways that we can kind of go about this, and one way that I like to use in some of our workshops is by assigning confidence quotients. Really what we're doing is we're kind of going around the room and we're allowing each person in the room to rank each piece of data with how comfortable they are that the assumption is accurate. And ultimately what this allows us to do is say, okay, there are certain pieces of information that are assumed that the group feels very confident in, and there are certain pieces of information that the group feels very unconfident in. And that helps us weed out if a stakeholder feels very passionately about something that the group doesn't agree on. And lastly, we take all of our data and we build a content plan. So we talk about the assets that we want to produce, we talk about the channels that we want to put the content on, and we put that together in some type of campaign. And an important thing to consider as we're doing that is that we are earmarking the assumptions that we've made to see how, throughout the life of the campaign, they're impacting what we're doing. And ultimately, that's how we measure and refine and make our content smarter over time without having to have all the questions answered at the beginning of the project. Thank you.